Alrighty, welcome in, Nick. This is my older brother. Nick, first off, I just want to say thank you for giving me this little bit of time to discuss this whole
Anytime, little brother, anytime.
I appreciate it. First off, I would just like you to introduce yourself, maybe talk about the research you've done, and provide a little bit of context to your knowledge about, concussions, CTE, and all that fun jazz.
Yeah, so for starters, um, I'm a orthopedic nurse over at OSS Orthopedic Hospital, um, ranging from, prepping patients for hip replacements to caring for patients who are being treated for concussions. We usually treat concussion patients who are in grade school, going as far as 21, I believe, is our cutoff. But basically, from childhood to young adult.
Awesome.
In regards to my previous uh, research that I've done, I've worked with genetics over at the University of Pittsburgh, ranging from silencing genes in fruit flies, nothing crazy. But basically, in regards to genetics, we just silence different genes in different stages of fruit flies' lives.
I don't know. It's just like, it's still crazy to think about that because it's just like I know you from well, I see you every week, and it's like I kind of always forget that that was a thing that you did. Little weird.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but no. Awesome. So, just for a little bit of context, so I did a little bit of research on the connections between CTE and its impact on the sport of football at the professional level. Before I kind of talk about some of the data that I found out, kind of delving into kind of like pivoting away from that. So one of the articles that I went into was a article by World Sports Networks, which is a popular article. It's titled "Does the NFL Need to Do More About Head Injuries?" Uh, Long story short, it was a article published regarding head injuries over the last couple of seasons, and I thought it was just a really interesting thing about how the fact that I really didn't start getting into the NFL till like probably so the last like 4 years. But the NFL actually only recently acknowledged the connections between CTE due to some high profile deaths, mainly Aaron Hernandez, which that was probably more closer to your time, oldie. Uh, but
So I do remember him from the New England days. Um, Great player, outstanding player. Obviously, things
rough.
didn't shake out the way things didn't shake out in the end. Of course, obviously, everyone knowing what happened in regards to that high profile case.
Yeah. Um, but no, something I found that was super interesting in this article was the fact that over so they reported a study over each of the 32 teams. In 2024, it was totaled out that with documented injury, TBIs and concussions, in 2024, it was a documented total of 286 TBIs and or TBIs and concussions. Uh, and then with this last season in 2025, the total was 179, which is almost a difference of 100. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting was the recent playoff, or not playoff, the kickoff return rule change. That was kind of interesting because it's something that we rarely see. It only made up about probably what 10% of plays, but in the article, it actually discussed that it actually accounted for, I believe it was over 15% of head injuries because it's just like, shoot, people running at each other at full speed. And it was like, I mean, that's why it was changed. Obviously, there's the the entertainment behind it. Obviously, people have their own opinions about it. Obviously, I'm
Mhm.
more. we're more interested in the medical side behind it. But I just thought, what are your thoughts on the decrease in head injuries? Do you believe that that probably played a factor? Obviously, what do you think probably
Well,
affected that lowering?
you know, uh, this being kind of like a science-led conversation, I mean, it's simple mathematics. Mass times velocity equals force, right? Did I get that right? Someone fact check me on that. But anyway, you have a large mass running at significant speed. And let's go back, 3 years ago when you were allowed to have that running start prior to the kickoff. That's adding more momentum. That's adding more, you know, speed towards this
Speed and
larger the
mass.
mass. Yes, that mass being these incredible players. These are some of the biggest, fastest humans on in America. Some may argue, in the world. These athletes move at tremendous speeds. Have you guys seen that Jordan Davis guy in on the Eagles? He's big. I think he's like 309 pounds, and he runs fast. I think he runs close to a 4.9. The average American only runs a 5.5, and we're talking about someone. Let's just say a quarter of your class.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, and it's like keep in mind, like shoot, Ed Reed,
Yeah,
Ray Lewis, like these are big
these
guys
are big humans.
that want to kill you, and it's like it
Yes,
genuinely surprises me that like it kind of goes back to the idea of like how as of like late people call the league soft, but it's like obviously with all these documented injuries and all these uh vets that are passing away due to neurological degeneration from CTE, which actually kind of perfectly segues into a second article that I found. In an article published by, sorry, I just need to remember the name. Dr. Michael L. Alasko, who was an associate professor of neurology at Boston University, also vice chair of research, also has a PhD in clinical psychology, but mainly focusing in neuropsychology. It followed a study sample of over 200 former players with it was a bunch of players with head injuries over over 3 years where they found signs of CTE were discovered, and it was genuinely one of those things where it was like essentially they looked at college athletes. It was a mix of football and other players, but they found that they were able to not definitively concrete diagnose CTE, but rather find signs of CTE, which obviously we see in players nowadays where it's like, we see players with behavioral issues, but then that leads into the question of is it the money or is it the injuries?
and to kind of add on to that conversation, I think that's something that we need to be careful as a society.
Yeah, to
you know,
mislabel
we we see certain players quote unquote acting out, meaning that they're not acting in the most
professional.
respected way, most professional way. And then obviously first thing that comes to mind is, oh, that player has CTE. And that's something that we need to be careful with, because that diagnosis isn't made lightly,
Oh, you
like
know.
we had mentioned earlier. Like that diagnosis can only be confirmed after death. So whenever you say, for example, um, James Pierce Jr., him crashing out, and I'm sure the class would love that phrase.
Yeah.
Him crashing out in, I believe it was in Miami, where
Oh,
he
you know,
went over.
it was my or Florida. Oh, Florida. Yeah, Miami, Florida. My bad.
It might have been Orlando. I don't. I know it was somewhere in Florida, but essentially what happened was is that he was, he was one of the higher candidates to win Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. And he was in LA for that award, and obviously he didn't win that award. I believe that guy.
Carson Schwetzinger, I believe, from the
Yeah,
Browns.
yes, obviously he won, and he was, I believe, second or third place in a running. Lo and behold, there he is. There's, cuts of him on his phone looking at some text messages, and this is where it kind of gets a little bit more,
Fast forward the next couple of days, legal
crap.
issues,
Yes.
behavioral. But no, yeah,
So,
I that's a very good point. People labeled that horrible instance as, hey, he might have CTE, which again, like people post about it, it's memes and it's more of a serious topic, and it's like obviously people tend to probably maybe not shy away from it, but more just. I mean, let's be honest. There are people that refuse to acknowledge the ties between CTE and professional sports injuries, and it's. I mean, there's that debate. I understand everyone has their own opinion, but obviously in this case, it's. I mean, we see that over time concussions cause neurological degeneration, which affects behavior, decision making. It all adds up. But we're not here to we're not here to break down the specifics behind that. But before I let you go, I do want to kind of mention a case report of a former NFL vet, which this article was very probably more aligned towards you. It showed the macular deformation of brain development after retirement, and this was a vet who played, I believe, 20 years of football, both college and professional. Had a string of concussions. Unfortunately, it was documented that he actually unfortunately played with a lot of concussions because he felt, or at this time this was the, I believe it was the 1970s, where it was actually reported that he had two documented seizures and he still played. But unfortunately, he did end up taking his life after retirement. Also had horrible gambling and alcohol addiction. But what I found a little bit interesting about it was the effect afterwards, where instead of choosing, this was heavily documented, where instead of choosing to seek medical help, he actually ended up seeking spiritual guidance. And it was one of those like discussions where it was the impact at that time where CTE wasn't recognized as a, like it wasn't connected to the sport of football. Where it was maybe if he was better educated, maybe would have prevented it? Probably not. Would it have treated it a little bit better? Who knows? It's a big what if.
and that's something, unfortunately, we'll never really know the answer to.
Oh yeah, no.
But that's kind of how it rolls.
But yeah, that was my brother. I really appreciate all the time and your input and your discussion. Uh, Obviously, thank you to everyone who is listening to this little mini podcast that I've chosen to do. I know it probably wasn't the easiest thing to kind of sit through and kind of talk about medical jargon, but I really do appreciate it, and hope everyone gets great grades on those multimodal projects. Nick, anything you want to say?
Nah, nah, man.
Thank you. All right, I'll talk to you later.